An aspect of fighting Alisa that a lot of players, especially beginners, struggle quite a lot with is dealing with her destructive or chainsaw stance. In this video, I will cover common situations that you will find yourself in against Alisa's chainsaws and what your defensive options in those situations are, so you can begin to form more of a game plan against them and just eat her bullshit a little bit less than you might otherwise. The first and most important thing to understand about fighting Alisa is her transitions and what your defensive options are after each one. The most important ones for Alisa when you're in the open like this are the ones that leave her standing and point blank plus in your face. This is because after these transitions, she is able to reliably enforce her mid-low poking mix-up. In these examples, I will be using Asuka to demonstrate. However, please note that a lot of these defensive options are going to be character specific due to differences in how the character moves, specifically their sidewalk and their sidestep. So please verify each of these things with your respective characters and adjust your game plan appropriately. So the first key group of Des transitions that Alisa has are moves that will leave her +5 in your face. So those are her 1-1, her 3-2, so her 13 frame punish, and her full crouch 1+2. Sorry, full crouch down forward 1+2 rather. Now the reason why these transitions are strong are because it will allow her Des 1 to beat out jabs. So any 10 frame move will lose to her Des 1. And this is very strong because it means that she can enforce her mid-low mix-up on you. Her mid-low poking mix-up on you without worrying about being interrupted by a dick jab or whatever. Note that the low can be interrupted, but as long as you're as long as she's consistently checking with that, she doesn't really have to worry about it. However, there is something that she does need to worry about, and that is sidewalk left. Sidewalk left will beat both the mid and the low. So you need to be sidewalking left quite a lot against this stance. This also applies when you're not point blank, because a lot of her options at these kinds of ranges will lose if you're just sidewalking this way quite a lot. Alisa does have a few options for covering instant sidewalk left, which I'll go over now. The first of those is her Des forward 1. So if you're fast enough, that will hit you once if you sidewalk fast enough. I'm bad. But if it hits you for every hit, it will deal 1 damage, and 1 hit is like if you get hit by 1 hit, you're like +7. So you can just interrupt her out of that. However, it's also worth noting that this is a high, so you can duck under it and punish it. It's not got very much whiff recovery on it, so I just recommend either that can be a bit difficult. If you're not comfortable with that, just punish it with a dick jab or some other full crouch move like that or whatever. It does also lose, I don't recommend doing this, but it does also technically lose to sidestep right. So you can also avoid it like that. I don't recommend doing that just because it's not scary enough on hit. one thing worth noting is that if you block it, she is +3. But you should be able to interrupt her Des 1 with that. So the only thing you have to worry about is her stepping around you if you block it. Next move she has is her Des back 1. Sorry, back 2 rather. So that will catch you if you sidewalk in either direction. And if you block it, she is safe, but there's a bit of pushback, and you're +3, so you should be able to just backdash away into neutral, and then start sidewalking until she gets out of chainsaws again. Worth noting, it is quite slow, so you can interrupt her and you can counter hit her with a magic 4 or anything up to. So that comes out on frame 21. So anything that's up to frame 15 will counter hit her if she does that. So I think I can even do that if I want, but okay, maybe not frame 15, but yeah, just a fast move to interrupt her there. And you can't. And note that I'm not sure about other characters, but Asuka can't backdash out of that either, even after the 1-1, which sort of has a bit of pushback on hit. So just be wary of that. Next option she has is her Des 1+2. So this is a homing high that leaves you in a ballerina sploon, so she gets +15. So you have to eat whatever she goes for next. And it's a bit finicky, but she can get a wall splat with that, like with any ballerina spin in the game, but it's a bit finicky, so I won't show you here. Obviously that is a high, so you can just duck it, wait for it to finish, and then launch punish it. Like, even Asuka can launch punish that, and hers comes out on frame 18 from full crouch. So yeah, don't let her get away with that if you duck it. Finally, just like with any character and any move, she can realign to beat an instant sidewalk. If you see her doing that, just sidewalk and then block. If you see her trying to realign, she can do it backwards as well. And in addition to that, you could always try and interrupt her. Maybe not if she goes backwards, but if she goes forwards, you can try and interrupt her with a fast move. And also, you can delay your sidestep or your sidewalk to go around her options if she is doing that a lot. But generally speaking, I'd say if she's doing that, to just react to her doing it and then sidewalk block to beat that. Hey, I've got a quick matchup specific thing that I wanted to mention earlier but just forgot to, so I'm going to record it now. Ling has this move here. This sort of frame 8 normal, her back 1. And if Alisa is point blank, when she hits you with that, you can actually interrupt with that. Same goes for her 3-2. Yeah, just thought I'd bring that up because it seems quite good. The next key group of transitions that Alisa has are moves that will leave her at +6 on hit. So these are her while standing 1-2, so her 13 frame while standing punish, and her back 4-3. Now this might vary from character to character. Some characters might be able to do this at -5, but not at -6. But in Asuka's case, I can still sidewalk around this mix-up. So my defensive options are exactly the same as they were last time. However, there is a bit of a quirk with her back 4-3. So notice how Asuka is left in full crouch. Even if she blocks this, she blocks this, she's left standing. But if she gets hit, she's left in full crouch. And this is important because while on the player 1 side, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. I'm bad, but you can still step around that, no problem. On the player 2 side, notice how I'm mashing down. And yet, I am not stepping. In fact, if I'm bad enough, I can even get caught by that. And this is because there is a mechanic in Tekken where when you're in full crouch, you can't step towards yourself. So on the player 2 side, you can't sidestep left. And if I just knock Alisa down. On the player 1 side, you can't sidestep right. So this won't make much of a difference if you're playing online unless you play on the player 2 side. However, if you play on the player 1, if you are at an offline event, such as a weekly, a monthly, or a national, or whatever else, you will just have to hold that if you're on the player 2 side. So just keep that in mind. Hey, so a few things that I wanted to mention earlier, but once again forgot. First of all, Xiaoyu can trade with that using her 8-frame move after the while standing 1-2. And also, the full crouch forward 1+2 has the same situation on hit as the back 4-3. So you're also left in full crouch there, and as such just have to eat the mix-up on player 2. Alisa only has one move that will leave her at +7 on hit, and that is her forward 2. So once again, this is going to vary a lot from character to character. However, in Asuka's case, you can still sidewalk around the low with no issues. However, if you just brainlessly sidewalking now, you will start getting caught by the tail end of her standing 1 after this. So you just have to be really careful. Because Alisa can now enforce that mix-up a lot better than she could off of her other transitions. There's also one other thing that's worth noting here, and that is that that's connecting a lot better now if I try and sidestep. So that's really locking me down now. So you just have to be really careful of that, because if you get hit by that, she is just in exactly the same situation that she is in after a jab. So just be very wary of that. Alisa has 3 ways of getting into start at +8. I will cover each of them separately because they all leave you in different situations and have different counterplay. I want to go over each one. So the first one is her power crush, her down forward 1+2. So notice that sort of leaves me in a ballerina spin, which means that if I get hit by that at the wall, I will be wall splat. However, notice how far back that is pushing me. It means that I can go around the mid, and the low, it will catch me, but I'll only get hit by 3 of the hits, so it's not that bad. And then Alisa's only +4 off of that situation, as well as this really awkward spacing. So there's not really very much to fear after being hit by that. So it's quite a good way to neutralize it. Obviously, she might be able to catch you with her homing move, and obviously she's got the homing high, which will just shut that down. And if she realigns, she might be able to cover you. But please just check those options with your respective characters. She's got one other option for ballerina spinning me into stance, and that is her boot 1+2. So as you can see from the spark, this is an unblockable. So I'm just holding back, I'm getting hit by that. However, because this is an unblockable, it is reactable. So just duck it on reaction and punish it. It's also coming out of a stance. So you have so your mental stack should be significantly reduced because she's not got very many options out of that stance. So you should be able to duck that quite reliably with a bit of practice. If you do get hit by it and you don't get wall splat, she leaves you a lot closer than the other one. So you just have to hold that mix. Alisa's last +8 transition is her down forward 1-1-2. So notice how this isn't natural, which means, yeah. So you can even react to that, and it's not even natural on counter hit. So you shouldn't ever really be getting hit by that. But let's say you're not very good at reacting to it, and you do get hit. You can backdash that. Okay, but what about the low? The low chases you, right? Wait a sec. If you're fast enough, you can just Korean backdash that and get a low block. I'm bad, but you can. You can do it. Trust me, I did it earlier. But what about her other moves? Surely she can catch me with her other moves, right? You can react to that whiffing and then sidewalk around the vertical. What about her other homing move? Yeah. So even if you wanted to sidewalk around that, even if you had been sidewalking around it earlier, you can just backdash all the homing options and then whiff punish them. This is a really bad transition. Do not let Alisa get away with it. But let's say you're in a situation where you aren't ready for the transition, or the Alisa player is ready to anticipate you being ready for the transition, or whatever else. What are your options if you get hit, and what are your options if you don't get hit? So first of all, before we cover anything, it is important to understand how Alisa works when she is in her destructive form. So any transition that gets blocked will always be minus. So just look at whatever the frames are for each transition and either punish it or just punch her out of her chainsaws. Additionally, if she is in her chainsaw stance, and she blocks anything, she exits her chainsaw stance and just returns to her ordinary, normal form. So just check her out of it. Don't go for anything big, just check her out of it. Now, because her attacks are using these chainsaws here, you cannot low parry anything, except for that. But that's a bit of a weird case. You can't low parry anything in this stance. So if you want to punish a low, so if you want to punish that, block it. Do not do anything else. And finally, when she is in her destructive stance, her movement options are heavily restricted. So she has no sidewalk. So she only has this sort of weird sidestep. She has no backdash. Her backdash is just a committal backflip. She has no forward dash, because her forward dash will put her into her dual boot stance, which she can also do with another input. She can sort of edge backwards or edge forwards like that, but really she loses most of her fast movement, or at least her fast non-committal movement anyway. She does have a command sidestep, and this has a sort of follow-up on it, that if you get hit by the wall, if you get sort of hit by it at the wall, it will wall bounce you. It's a bit weird to get the angle for that, but notice you get a wall bounce there. That, if you block it, well, I'll go over that in a minute, but that's unsafe on block, so that you can punish it. And she can access that out of her dual boot stance as well. Other than that, she can't crouch either. So while she can low block by sort of pressing down back, she can't sort of do a neutral low block. She can't just sort of low block by pressing down. So if she wants to low block, if she sort of expects a low, she's sort of got to anticipate it, and she will exit chainsaws. And she also can't low parry for the same reason, because she doesn't have any hands. So just be very wary of that, and it means that sort of quick lows are quite strong against this stance as well, or things that just won't be low parried or whatever, to just sort of poke her out of her chainsaws and reset to neutral. The first option I'm going to look at is Alisa's Des 1. So the chainsaw mid. So notice that that is -9 on block, which means that you can just kind of jab her out of that afterwards. She can't duck, obviously, which means that she can't sort of go under it like that. You could also go for like a fast mid if you're slightly worried about her low profiling you or whatever. I'm not completely sure whether she has enough time to do that. But just do that. Don't overthink it if you block that. Just return to neutral, knock her out of chainsaws, and then go from there. Now, she also can't avoid you with the command sidestep, if you're not really slow like me. So notice she can't sort of avoid you with that. Now, what about if it hits? So look at what I've got recorded here. So that is a common Oki trap that you'll see a lot of. It's a knowledge check. That will catch you if you back roll. Now, it does lose to side roll, but if you just side roll and stand up, she can get you with that if you're not careful. As such, your best option if you get hit by that in the open is to side roll and stay on the ground. Because if you stay on the ground, you won't get hit by that. And her options for covering that basically is literally just this. And she's out of chainsaws, and you're pushed back, so you can just safely backstep away from her after that. And you take a little bit of damage. So that knockdown is horrible from a pure Oki standpoint. However, do be aware that if they know that you know about this, they can just kind of do this and sort of continue sort of at this sort of mid-range here if you're not really careful. So just keep that in mind, but it's not a very scary knockdown. However, it does become a lot scarier at the wall, because if I just push Asuka over here like that, I just sort of like that. So if I'm like here, if I get you in like the corner, that's probably a bit easier to demonstrate. So you're in range of that now. That is really good. And this is why Alisa is generally at her scariest when you've got your back to the wall. Because she can sort of use these strong Oki tools right in your face. She can OTG you with that. She can OTG you with that. She can OTG you with that. I'm pretty sure she can OTG with that as well. Yeah, so she's just got a lot of options for dealing with you at the wall that you do kind of just have to hold. You have to just kind of hold them and slowly work your way out. Or punish something unsafe, like if you block that, for example, that's really unsafe. But I'll go over that in more detail in a minute. The next move that I want to cover is Alisa's Des down 1. So this move here. First things first, if you block it, it's minus 12. Do not let her get away with this. Just take your little punish, reset to neutral. If you have a dedicated I-12 while standing, great. If you don't, just do a while standing fall. Don't overthink it. Of course, if she hits it, she is, depending on how she hits you, she could be anywhere between +3 and +5. If she only gets the very earliest hit, she could even be very minus. But generally speaking, if she's using it, she's going to be in a range where she is either +3 or +5. Now, she moves slightly weirdly when she uses it. So if you try and just do a crouch jab or a while standing 4 to sort of interrupt her afterwards, it will whiff and she will trap you like that. With her 1, and obviously if she gets a +5 situation, then that's just a natural frame trap. However, she doesn't have to go for that. She can opt to move around afterwards to try and keep aligned with you if you're trying to move yourself or to get slightly better wall positioning. She can do this to try and keep the plus frames going. She's got other plus frame moves too, but I'll go over them later. Or she can just keep looping it like this. So if she goes into the Des 4-1, obviously that's a high, so you can just sort of stay down underneath it and then just quickly punish it or whatever. Or you can even do a dick, or you can't do a dick jab, but yeah, just stay down and then punish it. Or you can just block it and just take the -3 next. But if you've noticed that your player likes to loop this quite a lot, and you don't feel like block punishing it or whatever, if you get hit, you can, depending on your character, you can do an option that will interrupt her. So Asuka can get this if she interrupts it. But if you're not sure, just a quick interrupt tool can knock her out of that, or you can just block it and then punish her. Get your little punish like that. Also, depending on your character, once again, you may be able to punish her transitioning and doing that or whatever with a low crushing move. So let's set her to do that, and Asuka can do that. Even if she gets hit, she can do that. So you've got lots of counterplay to that, and that is a defensive resource that you have if you're expecting it. The next move that I want to cover, because it's a very important part of her chainsaw mix, is the Des forward 1. So if you block this move, you are left at -3. This move comes out in 13 frames, and it's her fastest move that will hit you while you're standing. So there are a couple of options that she has here. Obviously she can keep looping it as per usual. that will lose to crouch jab. And because it's only +3, this isn't a natural frame trap, which means that crouch jab is, provided she's not sort of spacing it a bit, if she's sort of just doing it point blank, crouch jab is quite a good defensive resource against this, because it will interrupt that. It'll punish this if she sort of loops this. It'll interrupt the low, like that. However, you do have to be careful not to just sort of do this too often, because a sidestep or a command sidestep will beat that, and then she will be able to launch you or whatever. Like, let's just, for example, let's set her to do this, like that. And like, yeah, so do be a bit careful, because if they pick up on that, they can punish you very heavily for it. Next up is Alisa's destructive back 1. So this move, first of all, if you block the first hit, it is -12, so you can punish it like that. However, it does have a follow-up on it, which leaves her at -3 and has a little bit of pushback, so you can kind of reset to neutral, or you can try, maybe not that, but you can try and interrupt her after that, just to reset to neutral, but it does also leave you in full crouch, so do be aware of that. It's worth noting that she can also delay this quite a lot, as you can see. I'm not quite sure if that was max, but it's pretty close. And yeah, so if she times it correctly, she can interrupt your punish, so just do be aware of that. Now on hit, notice it gets that sort of knockdown. Now in the open, that isn't very scary, because like her OTGs in the open are quite weak, but if you are in the corner, you can just do stuff like that and just be very careful of it. It's not a very good knockdown in the open, but it is a strong option in the corner, so just be aware of that. The next move I want to talk about is Alisa's Des forward 1. This is one of the scariest moves she has in her entire kit, because it leaves her at +8 on block, and on hit, she does like 70 damage. I think that's 72 on hit. That is very scary. Because it's +8, you can't even like... Oh yeah, it's got a follow-up, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Because it is +8, you can't even sidewalk around her mix-up. You just have to hold her mix after that. It does technically have a follow-up, but like, yeah. It's death on block. No amount of being able to delay at is going to save that move. Just if an Alisa for some bizarre reason does that, just do a delay hop kick or something. Do your biggest launcher and they will die. Now, something you'll see a lot of Alisas do, Sherdle likes to do this a lot, is they will just sort of do this into itself again. Now, you can interrupt that if you're ready for it. And if you sidestep, and if you sort of sidestep as well, like, it becomes a lot worse if it's not hitting sort of point blank. I'm pretty sure that if you're even very slightly off axis from Alisa, like, yeah. So keep that in mind. That is a defensive resource you have, but do be aware that you will get caught by the Chainsaw 1 if you're not careful. Now, I just want to go over a couple of options that Alisa has at the wall, because this is probably where her chainsaws are at their scariest. The first one, and the main reason why, is this move here. Her des down 2. Now, she can hold that to get the 6 hits, or she can just do this shorter version to get 4 hits like that. And this does a lot of damage. Like, I just want to show you that again, just so you can see. That's a very chunky hit for a low poke. However, do keep in mind that if you block it, it will push her away, and this is the main utility, like the 4 hit, is because it's slightly safer. Like that's sort of -12, depending on the range. But if she does the full length one, she'll most likely be pushed out of. You can just sort of blow her up for it if you get pushed out of range of it. Like, so do keep in mind it is kind of death on block if she doesn't do the sort of short one. Another move that I think is quite good at the wall, is okay in the open because it is an orbital, but which is mainly useful at the wall because it's an OTG, is this move here. So this is a safe orbital that leaves you in full crouch, but at +9. So if you block this, her turn's over. But if you get hit by it, she can't. But if you get hit by it, she can go into her. She can transition out of chainsaws and do a hop kick's worth of damage to you. She can go into her hop kick thingy, into a hop kick B&B, or she can do a simpler B&B as well. Main thing is it's quite strong, but you don't see it very often. I don't know why. I think it's very good. It's just a bit linear, and that's the main issue with it. Is it's very linear. I can't remember how fast it crashes, but yeah, just be aware of it. If you see an Alisa that knows that it exists, just be aware of it. And finally, there's this move here, which I told you about earlier. This move is a wall bounce. And she can get like quite a lot of damage depending on her range from the wall when she hits that. If she's slightly further away, she'll get a bigger wall bounce, which means more damage. But if you block that, it's -13. I'm not sure what Asuka's -13 punish is, but yeah, you can punish that. So just be ready. Just be ready for that if you block it. Now, the main situation you're going to end up at the wall is after a knockdown or a wall combo. Now, some knockdowns will leave you face down, head towards Alisa, which means that you can't do which means that you don't have access to a spring kick or any quick get up kicks. Or you can end up not like that, in which case you do have access to those. However, in general, a good option against Alisa at the wall is to sort of sidestep low block. So let's just say that she gets into chainsaws like that. So notice how the sort of side roll pushed me out of the way of her low. Yeah, so that's a very useful defensive tool, especially because her tracking isn't brilliant. Like the back one will track, but its tracking is a bit inconsistent, and it's not a true homing move like the high is, which is why sort of side roll into low block is quite strong at the wall. Next up, I want to cover Alisa's dual boot stance. So first of all, let's look at her dual boot 1+2. So this is 0 on block, and because of Alisa being in chainsaws, it is your turn there. If you have an I-12 move that can sort of hit her at that kind of range, that's amazing. But the point is, don't let her sort of mash there. Depending on your character, she might be able to spacing trap you or something, but it's not that scary really. Because her fastest move is like I-13. So don't overthink that if you block it. And obviously, if you get hit, she gets the world's worst knockdown. So yeah, it's not very scary on hit. And that's basically forcing her back to neutral, because I'm pretty sure that's out of range of a dual boot. So next up, let's look at her dual boot 1. So if you block this, you are -9. Do not press anything. However, it is very, very slow. So you have time to react to that and duck it, and then get an I-15 or I-14 launch, or I-13 launch, or whatever. Whatever your character has. Next up, let's look at her dual boot 2. So if you just do the first hit, that's -14. If she does both hits, she's sort of awkward to punish, is all I'll say. But you're probably best floating her out of that if you have a float that's sort of a decent-ish speed. That might be an easier way to punish than trying to time a launch for when she lands, because the recovery window when she lands is very, very tiny. And obviously she can go into this, but you already know how to deal with that, so I won't go over that again. She does also have access to her boot kicks from dual boot. So boot 3 and boot 4. Now, the thing about these moves is that they are both very unsafe. So let's have her do her boot 3. If you block that, I'm bad. If you block that, it's -14. So you get that as Asuka. If she does her boot 4, just gotta let her go through that. If she does her boot 4, yeah, just don't let her do that. You can probably get a delayed hop kick there. Now, there's something that I've not been telling you so far as I've been going over these, and so I'm going to go over them again and just not say anything. I'm just going to show you. Oop. I'll let her do that one again. And last but not least, yeah, so as you can see, this stance kind of just loses to sidewalk left. And probably also sidewalk right, to be clear. But sidewalk left especially is very good. And the reason why I'm saying to use sidewalk left is because that's also very good if she's in a sort of mid-range where she might be able to use her other pokes as well. Now, obviously, if she goes into like the sidestep here, the command sidestep, like that will chase you, but you can just react to that and block it. So it's not very scary really. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to be sidewalking left quite a lot against Alisa's destructive stance. And now, before I move on to the last part of this video, I'm just going to go over 2 miscellaneous options I've not covered so far. I've not covered them because they're very straightforward and you're not often going to be blocking these or whatever. But I'll cover them anyway. So, but you will often block one of them, but you won't see it that often. So, first of all, that there, Destructive 2, that is a safe on-block launcher. Most of the time, if she is using this, it is because she is punishing something with sidestep. Because her DES, because her DES for 1+2, while it gets better damage, I'm pretty sure, it won't launch you if you're not sort of facing her right in her face like that. So that's her best sidestep punish, and it's got this follow-up here. That'll never come out on block, so don't worry too much about it. And now, of course, I've already talked about this. This is a homing high, 0 on block, so it's your turn after that, just like after the other one. Plus 15 and thingy on hit. And a high, so you can duck and punish that. And last but not least, hang on. Yeah, she can access her Power Crush. And as I said before, that's minus 13 on block, so just punish it. Finally, before I wrap everything up, I'm just going to go over a couple of other transition situations that you can find yourself in. None of these are as good as the ones where Alisa is left standing up, but it is still important to know how to deal with them so she can't just bum rush you with matchup unfamiliarity. So the first one is a knockdown situation where you get that ender. That combo ender. There are a couple of ways you can go into that combo ender, but that's the main one you'll see is off of her 14 frame punish. She can do it off of her while standing 2 as well. She can do it off of her back 4-4 as well. Or if she gets an aerial spin with her Power Crush, she can also go into it from that. Now, that gets a spike. Which in the open is not that scary, really. You can kind of just back roll away. Often you'll see Alisa's actually do the variant of this where she transitions out after the ender, because the Oki is just not very good. However, if you've got your back to the wall, you just be aware that you're in the face down, head towards them position. So look at the way that she's sort of down like that. So your options will be limited to what you can do in that position. So just keep that in mind. Next up, and something else I will just want to briefly cover actually. Is with that launcher, if Alisa does it at the wall, she's got a follow-up that she can do, an alternate follow-up. So normally if you block this move, like, you can kind of just duck and punish it like that. Yeah, like you can launch that. But she does have a mid option, which you might occasionally see her use at the wall, because it will wall splat if you try and duck. That is minus 13 if you block it, so just punish that. Next up, I want to cover this move here. So you'll almost never block this, just to be clear, but if you do block it, yeah, just launch it. But She can use this to get into chainsaws at the wall. Basically the same situation as after that wall bounce I showed you earlier, which I think I might even have recorded here. Yeah, so same situation as after that wall bounce. That wall bounce leaves you at plus 13, so punish her for that. When you have your back against the wall, generally speaking, Alisa's main route into chainsaws is going to be off of ball splats. So just be very wary of moves that she can use to get into that situation. Like obviously her magic 4, her back 3, and also be aware of direct transitions. So there's that move there. So her power crush, obviously minus 13 on block. She's got her forward 3 string. So that and that. If you've got your back to the wall, don't ever duck the high, because both options will lose to this. Like you don't get a punish here, but you're plus 4. Which means that you're plus 4 and Alisa's stuck in chainsaws, which means that you can kind of maneuver your way out quite easily, or poke your way out or whatever. And if she goes for the mid, well, it's minus 13. Like, so it's a bit of a gimmick. It's a pretty bad string, to be honest, outside of literally punishing stuff, in which case that is actually slightly stronger at the wall. Other than that, she's obviously got the unblockable. Just be looking for that if you see her go into boot and duck it on reaction. And she can wall splat you with that mid there. So that's safe on block. And she can get a transition off of it. She can't get a transition off of like anything else in that stance. But just be aware of be wary of sort of poking her out of it if you're sort of not quick enough to sidewalk around it, because she can sort of do that and get stuff like that. And otherwise, just be wary of her wall bounces and other miscellaneous splats. Like that string's only natural on counter hit, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so that wall bounce is natural and counter hit, but otherwise you can like block the second hit or duck the second hit, because it's sort of a mid-high mid. Obviously that's very unsafe, as I showed you a moment ago. And yeah, just be aware of those. Right, next up I just want to cover some boot transitions and dual boot transitions, because dual boot is technically a chainsaw transition, and also like none of these transitions are good if you know how to deal with them. They're sort of gimmicky and there to kind of catch you off with mental frame advantage rather than anything real. So the first one that we're going to look at is Alisa's forward 1+2. So first things first, if you block this, it's minus 12. Even without the transition, it's minus 12. So just don't let her do it. And if she does transition, she's like minus 16. So you can kind of just say no to that as well. Now, what about on hit? So on hit, with the transition, this is +3. So that's in itself a problem with the normal boot transition, because you can kind of just jab to trade with that. Though I'm not sure the low might go under that. But like, you can use a 10 frame to trade with that. Like, just as long as you're not going for like a 10 frame low or whatever, you can trade with it. but you can't do that against dual boot. So what's the issue? Well, the issue is you can kind of just step block, and that will be that. You can go so far. And that will just sort of shut down her entire offense, meaning she has to go into fake shit. And dual boost is somehow even worse. You don't even need to step block that. Okay. So what about our next transition? So this one here. Now, on block, that's even worse, just to be clear. On block, like that, minus 52 on block. Like, do not let her get away with this. You can float her. If she doesn't finish it, like, if she doesn't finish it, she's still minus 52, so you can just launch her for it. Like, it's terrible. And if she sort of does the string ender of that, she's minus 13 or 14. So it's just like really bad. Obviously that string is good on hit. Like, to be clear, it's one of her key long range punishes, but on block it's sort of bad. And like, even if she hits it, like, look at this transition. Like, sure, it looks like you're plus 25, but in practice, you're not. Like, you are, this is even worse than the other one. And I don't know why it's displaying plus 25. Because you have so much time to step that, and then obviously, if that one's worse, that one's worse. So yeah, don't ever get hit by that, please. I'm begging you. And last but not least, we have this move here. So obviously on hit, that's just a combo. That's one of her 15 frame launches. But on block, you should be able to find an option select for this with your character. So I'm not sure what Asuka's option select is. Might be something like that. Or whatever. Find whatever works for your character, so option select that on block. So that even if she doesn't sort of go into the boot like that, she can just sort of, you can still punish her. Like so. Like, so just find a good option select for that, so you don't have to think or react or anything, because you've got loads of time to punish it, and it'd be a shame to drop it, especially when you'll often end up blocking that from like missed whiff punishes and stuff, because she'll often try and whiff punish with that, and if it gets blocked, then it's kind of death on block. And just last but not least, she's got a couple more ways you can go into these, but these are basically all just combo carry stuff. Like, you're very rarely gonna deal with most of these on block, but I will quickly go over them and sort of the knockdowns you get there. So first of all, that's a high, so just duck and launch that. If you're not fast enough to duck that and they finish the string, they can also transition off of that. That's minus 10, so just, yep. And both of those, if you get hit, will leave you in a sort of, that will leave you in a weird knockdown, whereas this is just like a combo, so she can just do an ender after that. So just be aware of them, I guess. You're almost never going to see those outside of like extensions from our other launchers though, unless you're in low ranks. Next up, this here, that's once again like minus 10. Don't let her get away with it. If she can delay that quite a lot is the only thing I'd say. But like, yeah, like if you ever block this, yeah, don't let it get away with it on block. And if she does combo into that, I will say that it does get flip over Oki if she sort of does that in a combo as a sort of wall ender. And she can obviously go into chainsaw, so it can be a bit scary as a wall ender. There's that. Obviously that's death on block, as you can see there. Yeah, death on block. If you get hit, like she'll sometimes transition at the wall, and she'll get that off of her back 4-4. She gets that off of this launcher, funnily enough. She gets that as the max damage route off of that launcher. And depending on the wall distance, you might end up getting sort of carried by that out of other starters as well. So just be aware of that. If they're doing that as their wall combo, be aware of that potential transition. And the last one I'm going to cover is that this is a terrible string. Like, it's not natural even on counter hit. -10. If it does hit you, it looks scary because it's +14, which means that she can launch you after that. But if you just hold down, you'll never have to deal with that, ever. But you shouldn't be getting hit by it in the first place, unless it's like a wall carry move, in which case you might see a transition or something. She does technically have a few other transitions, but like you're never ever going to see these. Like, she can go in off of that. She can go in off of that. Like, it is quite, like, these are really terrible, and I shouldn't need to explain why. Like, why would you not just combo over, you hit that, instead of this terrible transition? And like, there are some situations where you might see Alisa go for that, but it's so rare. So just, you don't need to worry about it very much. And that's just about everything I wanted to cover about Alisa's chainsaws. I hope that this is useful. I know I struggle quite a lot against chainsaws in general when I first started out, and it can be quite scary if they're sort of doing this in your face or whatever. Like, and sort of just frame trapping you a lot. Just make sure you're guarding a lot is my main general recommendation. Make sure you're using your movement properly, and don't let her get away with bullshit from over here, because it's not very good. Like, just take advantage of the limitations that she faces when she is in it, and you should have a not easy but certainly tolerable time against it. And God save you if you've got your back to the wall. Just, if you're in this situation, just step block. Don't even attempt to challenge her. Like, there are too many ways that she can screw you up in this situation. Like, too many ways she can fuck you over. Just step block if you've got your back to the wall. And that's about it, really. So, hope you enjoyed. Hope you found this useful. Peace.